Hi, welcome to the Madison CLD channel. Today we're going to have part 4 of our series on newcomers. I'll put in the cards up above where you can find the other 3 videos. Our topic today is culture shock. Studies show that adults experience physical and emotional repercussions from moving just to a new town for a full year after they've been there, much less moving to a different country. They're prone to illness, sleep disturbances, irritability, tired feelings. Children are even more vulnerable. Consider being in a strange place without friends or protectors, and you don't have the power to communicate. Compound that with your parents' inability to guide or reassure you because they don't even know what to expect. And yes, you got a recipe for disaster right there. What can we do about this? Well, the most important factor is you, the teacher. A good relationship with you and their classmates has the largest positive effect on coping with culture shock out there. Children with no same language classmates are in total linguistic isolation. They're the ones who are at the greatest risk for headaches, depression, and psychological trauma. Besides language, there are 7 other different types of culture shock that your student will probably experience. Number 1, ways of behaving. In other cultures, education is much more strict. Students learn by rote, they sit in rows, they stand up to answer questions. It's a lot more formal. And in those cultures, failures a lot of times are punished. American schools are much more relaxed. And you would think that students coming from a stricter environment to America would be grateful for that. But to them, they perceive it as chaos. A second type of culture shock is respect. A student calling you teacher instead of your full name might be doing it as a sign of respect, not because they can't remember your name. You might see them recoil if you try to hand them something with one hand, or they might always grab things with 2 hands, because in their culture, that is showing respect. Also, in some places, it's considered an insult to accept or to give something with just your left hand. Touching the top of a student's head is also a sensitive spot because that is something that is considered the most respectful and the most sacred part of the body, so you shouldn't touch the top of their head. Touching in general can be a sticky situation, knowing whether to touch them at all or to give them a hug or anything like that. Often speaking to the teacher without waiting for the teacher to speak to them first is part of their culture as well. A third type of culture shock is group work. In some cultures, it's not considered to be real learning. Why would they expect them to teach each other when it's the teacher who's supposed to be doing the teaching? Also, asking students to express the personal opinion can be an affront to somebody from a different place because they again, are expecting the teacher to teach them and not learn something from other students and not give their opinions. A fourth type is having boys and girls in the same classroom. This might be something that they're not used to from where they come from. Number 5 is clothing. Girls wearing pants might be a shock to them. Wearing outside shoes inside the school. Some places they require them to remove their shoes and wear special booties. A 6th type of culture shock is structure. The way that our schools are run is way different than in other places in the world. We change teachers all the time. They might go to a different place for math, and we obviously change for specials like music and art and all of those kinds of things. Where in other cultures, that one teacher teaches all of the subjects, including being with them during their lunch period. In other places in the world, they also have an assembly every morning where the principal gives them a pep talk. And they might be expecting something like that from us, and then they don't get it, they kind of get confused. Other places, they have breaks every hour for the kids to play or to talk with each other, and we don't have that here. So your student who's new might even be unclear to them when they're allowed to go and use the restroom. So that's something you want to work on with them. Saying the Pledge of Allegiance every morning in our schools, students might misinterpret that as being a prayer or part of a different religion from what they're in, so that might be a confusing point for them as well. And number 7 is physical contact and closeness. How close that you stand to a student or the students stand to each other might be something where they're used to being farther away, or maybe they're not used to having that barrier between them where they get up close and personal. So it just depends on where they're from. Here are some things to remember. Misinterpretations are going to happen on both sides. And if they seem to be behaving in a way that's rude, strange, or unexpected, don't automatically assume that they are being bad on purpose. It could be a sign of misunderstanding, or it could even be a defense mechanism where they're trying to protect themselves because they don't know anything about what's going on. Be aware of those situations and seek some insight from other people who know or understand the culture that that child comes from. Also know that newcomers are going to be frustrated. They didn't choose to come here. It was their parents who chose to come here, and they didn't want to be here, and so they're going to act out because of that. They don't feel like they belong. People might look different, sound different, even dress different than they do, and that's going to make them uncomfortable. Allow these students to speak in their home language as much as you can. Yes, they are learning English, but we need to respect their home language as well and to honor that and help them preserve it. A lot of these students won't even know how to ask for help when the work is too hard for them, or they might feel like it's disrespectful to even ask for help. And they might blame themselves for not understanding or knowing what you're asking. It bears repeating. Build the relationship. You are with them for the majority of the day. You can alleviate some of this anxiety just by showing them that you care about them. There you have some of the different types of culture shock that your newcomer is going to experience. I hope this information was helpful to you and gave you some insights into your newcomer. Happy teaching.